Denizens of the internet, what's going on? Mark with Cardivox Academy here, and today we're checking out Suicide Silence, Thinking in Tongues. Now, I'm pretty on time with this video. It's only been out for 8 days as of the recording of this video, so finally sort of riding the wave. If you are familiar with the channel, we're behind on a lot of the trends. But I'm very excited to talk about this song because if you're familiar with Suicide Silence, which if you're watching this channel, you probably are, they've had quite a journey, right? They've had quite a journey. Obviously, of course, Mitch Lucker, who is one of the basically founding fathers of deathcore and deathcore vocals, was the original vocalist. He passed away. Eddie from All Shall Perish stepped in. Kind of a contentious time when they tried some new sounds, and people are telling me that All Shall Perish is, or no, I'm sorry, not All Shall Perish. Suicide Silence is kind of back to their old sound, back to their roots. So I'm excited to see if I agree, if I find that to be true. But what we do here on the channel is we take the reaction format, we break it down. We take the reaction format, we break it down, and we try to make it educational. I myself am a metal vocalist. My three main projects are Kardashev, Neverbreath, and Viramia. Kardashev is actually the only one that's currently active. We're releasing a full-length album via Metal Blade June 10th. So get excited for that, I guess. And I'm also a vocal coach specializing in teaching people deathcore, death metal, doom metal, any subgenre you want to call it. Vocals, teaching them how to make all these crazy sounds. So I try to make this reaction format fun and educational. Hopefully you learn something. If you enjoy the content, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. It means a lot. I love watching the channel grow. It means a great deal. And then if you really love the content, we do have a Patreon. Most of our Patreon stuff takes place on our Discord server, but you get to nominate and vote on videos for me to react to every month. We have vocalist-themed events like karaoke afternoons, I guess. We have listening parties every Friday where we share and check out new music. And it's a great time. So I think that's enough from me. Let's check out Suicide Silence, Thinking in Tongues. Let's go. Okay, so yeah, I'm definitely hearing the back to the roots, back to the old sound vibe going on here. Now, interestingly enough, this is pretty cool. In the beginning of the song, we heard Eddie do three different things, pretty basic fundamental things, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes I think, this is just my opinion, sometimes I think sometimes deathcore can get a little bit bogged down by technique exposition, like how many techniques can I fit into a super small space. That's cool, that's great. Sometimes it can be a little bit much. Now, granted, he did three different things here at the beginning, but they were very fundamental and they sounded very good. We had a very Fry forward high, right? He had that open, relaxed space. Like he had that. He had the false chord, the low he did sounded very false chord to me. We're gonna dig into that a little bit more as the song goes on. I want to hear it a little bit more, but it was, you know, like a like that sort of sound. And then he did like another high vocal with what sounded like a falsetto or maybe like a mix underneath it. We're gonna talk about it a little bit more, but I just wanted to point out those three things so you can listen to them moving forward, right? Let's keep going. Also, the last time I like visually saw Eddie, he was like very clean cut, like, you know, barbershop look going on, and now he's looking a little bit more like just metal, I guess you could say. And I dig it. I dig the vibes for sure. At first I was like, do they have a new vocalist I didn't know about? But no, it's cool. Let's keep going. Yeah. call me crazy, but his lows, which maybe they're more of a mid. I don't know. Sometimes I don't really care too much about that distinction. Is a low, is it a mid? I don't know. It sounds cool. But it's almost like Nurgle-esque, maybe around like Evangelion, like that era of albums. Maybe even up through like Blow Your Trumpet, Gabriel. That was a good era of Behemoth. I know they dropped another song recently, but yeah, so the reason I'm saying that is because he's got a lot of tonality and it's very, very barky. One thing to know about most false chord vocals, right? Especially like our baseline old school false chord, like that foundational, like, yeah, hey, me, yeah. That sound, you're not going to hold it a very long time. Sometimes students will come to me and they'll say, oh, I'm frustrated because I'm not holding my false chord vocal for very long. And my first thought is like, okay, maybe their expectations aren't quite right. You know what I mean? But generally speaking, you're not going to hold a false chord as long as you're going to hold a fry. It's just not going to happen because a false chord is very air driven, right? We need a very channeled, a very controlled, but open airflow to make these sounds work, right? And oftentimes, it's very similar to just, hey, right? We have those sounds. Now, there are multiple ways to get into it, right? Many different ways. One of the most common ones, and one that I teach people a lot with very frequently, is the Kargria, the throat singing. Right? You can also do like the gentle throat clear, which, by the way, if you're doing the throat clear at home, it needs to be soft, it needs to be quiet, and you need to not do it for like 20 minutes at a time. Clearing your throat can be hard on your voice. So it's really just more of a calibration. Yeah. Right? He is taking it and he's adding a little bit of tonality. He's got like a sound, sort of sound underneath it. Yeah. That's giving him a certain level of compression that it sounds really cool. Anytime you are a new any vocalist, whether or not you've been doing, vocals for a week or 10 years, when we are engaging our true chords along with distortion, we want to make sure we're being very careful. I'm not against it by any means. I've done it before, but I am a firm believer that you need to be able to create voiceless distortion, or you should be able to create voiceless distortion before you have voiced distortion. So you can create degrees of separation between your vocal folds and the actual distortion mechanisms, which on these lows for him are his false chords, arytenoid cartilages, and probably a little bit of the aryepiglottic fold as well. Those are kind of the main generators of distortion. Let's keep going though. Also, his highs are really worth talking about as well. So right now, his highs are very, very loose in their articulation. Now, that's something, and this is just based on my ear and what I've noticed over the years, because deathcore started really getting big probably when I was like 18 or 19. So I've really, along with a lot of other people of my age group and older, watched the genre develop over time. And this is a very kind of old school technique that I still think holds up really well today. And it's to keep the articulation loose so that you can keep your airflow even, right? When we talk, we often say like if I'm exemplifying my airflow, open, closed, hello, my name is Mark. I enjoy pizza. And sometimes when we say words like pizza, that can create, especially when we're singing and screaming, pizza. See how I'm occluding the airway with the letter P, which is a non-voiced bilabial plosive. It's not a dirty word. And right? So we have another impediment of the airflow, right? What deathcore used to do, and it still does, right? But one thing that was super, super common was to say, like, instead of pizza, like pizza, 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 right? Another trick back in the day was, and I still do this a lot, instead of saying like duh and tuh, you do like a Sid the Sloth, duh and tuh. You can really let your airflow continue through there. I haven't heard him do that, but like the wide open sort of loose articulation, it's really great for having a steady airflow. I think it's got a really nice sound to it. I have noticed that deathcore vocals have gotten a lot more snappy over time, and that's fine too. But this definitely is like hitting some nostalgia vibes, but it's a new song, so it's cool. I dig that. Let's keep going though. Oh, my dog just barked. Sorry if you can hear that. He's a good boy. So another thing that he's doing, which is actually really smart, and again, you hear it a lot in like OG deathcore, but again, people still do it today. I'm not trying to create a binary here, but you hear a lot of ramping into the vocal, right? That's a really smart thing to do. You can do it without it being so audible, but one of the main things that I'm constantly just fixing with students, because it's such a common issue and it's not that hard to fix, right? Is people come in and if they're gonna scream the word I, they say I, right? I'm even holding back a little bit on that because what that is it's called a glottal attack. I've talked about it in some of my other videos, but a glottal onset is totally fine and safe and healthy when done lightly and loosely, right? Basically, when we start our words, we have different ways that we can onset vowels, right? So we've got like a mixed or a balanced onset, yellow, runny, weather, wheat. We have an aspirate onset, hello, hello, hello. And then we have a glottal onset. So a glottal onset is basically when your vocal folds close, right? Even if you're doing a scream that doesn't involve your vocal folds, the onset, this is how it works. Your vocal folds close, air builds up underneath them, and then the balance of pressure between the resistance of the vocal folds and the air makes them go and open. So eat every individual avocado. Right? Now, we go throughout our lives doing glottal onsets hundreds of thousands of times a day, right? So we can kind of put the idea to rest that glottal onsets on their own are inherently bad. But when paired with singing and very aggressive vocals, it's very easy to have a buildup of what's called subglottal pressure, or subglottic pressure, some people say. And that's basically when you're slamming your vocal folds together. Boom, you have a huge jet stream of air pushing up from the beneath, right? And it's like a battering ram on the underside of your vocals. You don't need me to put together to tell you that that's probably not the most healthy thing for your vocals. So from what I'm hearing from him, and I'm not saying he's never using a glottal onset, but what I am saying is I'm not hearing any glottal attacks. And on his high vocals, one thing he's doing is if he was to scream the word I, he would actually say I. Hear that little ramp? I. Back in the day, you also used to hear people just say like yai or why, but you know, the difference is I. And when I'm driving that, you might not be able to see, but I'm keeping my throat relaxed. I'm dropping my jaw. I'm lifting the back of my tongue to create a space that's conducive to higher, more bright tones, right? And I'm squeezing the gut. You can kind of see it here, but watch. It ain't hard to see. Watch the gut when I squeeze, when I do this here. So see how that engagement, I'm squeezing in, I'm feeling a little bit of downward pressure. My throat stays open and relaxed and my vocal folds aren't slamming together. Something really important to talk about. I do have some things I want to talk about on his lows, but I've been chattering for a bit of time here. So let's go ahead, let's hear some more of the song and then we'll talk lows. I want to hear that high vocal again. Yeah, so I know I just said let's listen to more of the song, but that's really worth talking about. So sometimes when I point things out that I am hesitant about, people get real spicy, right? So when I'm saying this, I'm talking about you, right? The vocalist who probably hasn't been doing this for 10 years. The vocalist who probably is just learning, or, you know, maybe you've been doing this for a while, but you're not quite sure of the sounds that you make, right? This is not me posturing myself above Eddie. Eddie is a very, very good, very accomplished vocalist. So at home for you, right? I am very generally hesitant about doing these high screams with a very present, very audible behind it, right? And the reason I'm hesitant about that is because high notes are hard, right? If high notes were really easy for people to sing, vocal coaches wouldn't have jobs, really, because one of the most common things. Now, I teach mostly screaming. I have the occasional clean singing student who's really just there for the fundamentals. But, you know, if someone wants to be like a really accomplished like rock singer, they want to do power metal, they want to do classical opera, these types of things, I don't touch that. That's not what I do. However, all of those people, one of the most common requests that they get is help me sing high notes, because high notes are tough, right? So chances are when you're up there, if you don't understand the mechanism of your voice, you're going to be achieving that high note in a less than healthy fashion. And then on top of that, you're just going to throw distortion on there. Now, one of the biggest pieces of pushback I get, right? One of the biggest pieces of pushback I get is that like, oh, well, it doesn't hurt when I do it. Pain in the moment is not the only indicator of whether or not a vocal style is safe or healthy for you to do, right? Think of it this way. A runner, because like when we're doing vocals, it's an athletic activity, right? It involves muscle and tendon, and even with our breathing, it involves bones, right? With our ribs. So let's say that there's a runner. They love running. They're never in pain when they run, but their posture is not very good. Over the years, they could develop some serious knee problems or some serious lumbar problems, right? Same thing is true with us. We can develop issues over time. Now, it's very important that I say, I'm not saying this to like scare you, right? I'm not, and sometimes you'll hear people say like, you have to get in lessons or else you will definitely hurt yourself. That's also not true. Some people are just good at this. Not everybody needs lessons, right? I'm not trying to like sneakily funnel you into my inbox, right? However, if you do your highs this way, and then sometimes you feel like, if you were to talk and go like, ooh, ooh, your vocal folds wouldn't connect very well, or your voice feels fatigued or like velvety at the end of the day, then you may want to take a step back and reevaluate what you're doing, right? Now, again, he's been a vocalist for a very long time. He's probably fine. I've never spoken to him. I've never like sat down and been like, what does your voice feel like after a show? Do you find yourself coughing and sputtering more? I don't know. But this sound, it sounds dope. I like it, but you at home, I just want you to be a little cautious. That's all I'm saying. We'll hear it one more time so you can kind of hear what I'm saying, and then we'll keep going. So there's a really interesting balance in the low vocals here. Now you may hear this and be like, it's just like a bar key false chord. And like, you're right. Like that's totally true. But one thing that he's doing is he's got a little bit of closure. He's got a little bit of compression on that false chord. Now that's sometimes a little bit of a contentious subject as well. Some people are like, false chords never have any compression. And then some people are like, false chords require squeezing. And for me, I think that like your bass false chord requires no tension. Yeah, hey, me. I'm literally just opening my mouth and then supporting that distortion up into the back of my throat so it's off my vocal folds, and that's it. Like it's a grunt. It's a hey, hey, However, what I can do if I would like to is I can do a little bit of engagement around the space of the arytenoid cartilages, right? There have been laryngoscopies where you can actually see people doing this, and I know that Will Ramos got scoped, and their charismatic voice they're gonna have a video of that soon. So depending on how he does his vocals, we may see that as well. He also might do them completely differently, so who's to say? But we can take this and turn it into more of a do you hear the difference? That sound, I'm not engaging my fry at all, right? But that sound I can hold that a much longer amount of time. Still not as long as like a solid, pure fry tone, right? But much longer. So to me, hearing this just kind of in the moment, I'm hearing him, and I'm going to sound really stupid for a second, right? I'm hearing him kind of talking like this. I've got a lot of attitude, and then, when you do a lot of metal vocals and you take the distortion away, it sounds so dumb. Like, it sounds so dumb. That's just the nature of it. That's not me saying he or anybody else sounds dumb, but one thing I say to a lot of my students, they'll be self-conscious. They'll be like, I sound stupid, and I'll be like, if you don't sound stupid, you're probably not learning metal vocals the right way. And that's kind of a joke, but you know, it's to loosen you up. So I take this and I'm talking like this, and I'm gonna put that again. I have the understanding of how to create distortion away from my vocal folds, especially in this false chord realm. So I'm gonna talk like this while I'm going very loosely. I talk like this right there. Now he's even looser than that. I talk like this. Yeah, closer to there. Right there, like that. Break away. Oh, I just spat all over the place. It sounds like he's doing something based on that. He might have a more airflow, open airflow than I'm initially thinking, but let's go back and let's hear it. Nah, that's it, yeah. I paused it right before a really stinky sounding low. Oh, I'm very excited to talk about that. Okay, so one thing I also want to mention, and this applies to both the highs and the lows, is he's not really creating the high and the low here, right? He's not really creating the high and the low here. A lot of it is happening in the mouth. One thing that I show a lot of people, and this is the example that I'm going to give you is not the exact same vocal he's doing. It's just a very good vocal to show it with. Right? So if I do like my stinkiest, gurgliest low, which I trimmed my beard, so it's a little harder, but I like to pull on my cheeks when I do this, right? Because you can hear how much of a difference it makes. And this is a good example. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I create a low and how many vocalists create a low. I don't know if they do this. Somebody told me Mike Patton does the cheek pull, and I believe it because he's a kooky guy. But I'm going to pucker my lips. I'm going to curl my tongue. I'm going to drop my jaw. I'm going to do this, and that's going to create a very resonant space. Right? And then I'm going to just get rid of all those things. I'm going to keep the distortion itself the same, and you're going to hear this just a mid. It's just a mid, right? So I'm here. It's just a mid, right? If I can create comfortable mids and then augment the sound with the shape of my, because I mean, the screams like this, they're all texture. Right? They're all grit. Let's be honest, a little bit of the nuance of the voice is dropped away because we're trading it for types of noises, right? So rather than having to rely on the vocal folds, which, if we want higher and lower pitches, our vocal folds have to lengthen and shorten, thin and thicken. We're not doing any of that. Not with this anyway, right? Same with my high vocals. I just have like a looser, more fry influenced high vocal, right? Right? And now I'm just going to open up and I'm going to snarl a little bit. I'm going to lift the back of my tongue. I'm going to keep my throat relaxed. Right? And it's a high vocal, right? But if I take all that away, you can hear underneath I'm doing kind of a lazy mid vocal. And he's doing that really, really well here. I like that. Let's go back because like I want to hear what's going on. Oh. I want to hear that one more time. Okay, so I do wish he held that low longer. That's just a stylistic preference. That's not me saying he did it wrong. That's just a stylistic preference. I wish he held that longer because it was a cool sound. It sounded like we had a couple vocal layers on there, that's fine. That's par for the course. But if I was to imagine the shape of his mouth, it would have been probably, and I could totally be wrong here, but to me it sounds like this. You hear how that like creates like that snarl right there, and again it's just a mid, right? Then he did like this bleh sound, which actually was a really good example of what I was talking about. It sounded like he may have been throwing a little bit of like a tunnel on there. I'm not so sure on that yet though, but right? A lot of times our blehs and stuff don't have to actually be that complicated. It's about delivery, right? Like honestly, like this, right? That's it's me being really relaxed and kind of lazy with a vocal, and then just using the shape of my mouth to accentuate. I'm like, you can build up a little air in your cheeks. Bleh, bleh, bleh. You can tilt the tongue while you do it. Bleh, 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 bleh. Right, and you can get all sorts of cool sounds. Let's listen to that outro again, then we'll wrap it up. Suicide Silence, Thinking in Tongues. Yeah, definitely. I think a return to form vocally and both compositionally for Suicide Silence. Very straightforward deathcore. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. I can see a lot of people putting this on their playlists. I can see a lot of people getting into it. From the comments on the video, this is definitely a big crowd pleaser. So good job. Good job to the Suicide Silence guys. Not that you need my validation. You certainly don't. But I dug it. Lots to talk about. So hope you all enjoyed that little jaunt we did through the vocal world of Suicide Silence. Again, if you like the content, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. It means a lot to me. Check us out on Patreon. We've got a pretty big community. We have a lot of interaction on our Discord server. It's a lot of fun. Sometimes we get in a little spicy takes about genre music, but it's always respectful. Everyone there is really cool. Everyone there is really cool. And then if you are so inclined, again, my main band Kardashev has an album coming out full length on Metal Blade. Does not sound like this at all. So like sometimes people check out Kardashev, and because I cover a lot of deathcore, they expect deathcore, and then they're like, what's this? It's not a deathcore band. But feel free to check that out if you want. But more than anything, I appreciate you spending roughly 30 minutes with me on this fine day and loaning me some of your time. With that being said, as always, many thanks, much love, I'm out.